You ever notice how the man who says the least gets the most attention, while you're the one doing all the talking, all the chasing, all the proving, and still getting nothing back? You hold doors open, send thoughtful texts, you're nice, respectful, emotionally available, and yet she scrolls past your messages, avoids eye contact in public, barely remembers your name. But the guy who barely acknowledges her, he's unforgettable. You see him walking through the same cafe, not even dressed to impress, not trying to be seen, and somehow she watches him like he's the only man in the room. It eats at you because deep down you know he's not better than you, but he's doing something you're not. And that's what this video exposes. This isn't about becoming someone else. This is about becoming the version of yourself that doesn't need her to choose you to feel like a man. The version that doesn't chase presence, but becomes it. The man who doesn't perform, but who makes performance obsolete. You've been lied to. You were told to be yourself, to treat her right, to open up. But in reality, that only works for men who don't need it to. The men who attract effortlessly don't explain themselves. They don't validate every feeling. They don't try to entertain. They own the moment by not needing anything from it. Women don't feel drawn to what's available. They feel drawn to what's centered, rare, unmoved. They feel drawn to men who can walk past them in silence and still leave them thinking about that glance hours later. If you're tired of being invisible, tired of getting the short end of every interaction, tired of feeling like something's broken, it's because you were never told truth. This is why women feel drawn to men who do this in public. Number 1. He doesn't need to be noticed. Most men today are trapped in a desperate cycle they never even realize they're caught in. They wake up, check their phone hoping someone messaged them first. They scroll social media wondering how to present themselves to look successful, attractive, powerful. They buy clothes not because they like them, but because they want attention. They talk loud in public hoping someone listens. They flex at the gym, post their lifts online, and fish for compliments because validation has become their fuel, and without it, they feel invisible. But that same craving for attention is the exact thing that keeps them ignored. It's not about women rejecting them, it's that women can see right through them, through every exaggerated laugh, every story they inflate to sound interesting, every compliment they offer too early, every selfie they take at angles they hate. These men live in the exhausting performance of constantly trying to be seen. And the tragedy is, the harder they try, the more they fade. Because the man who needs to be noticed is a man who hasn't yet noticed himself. But the man who doesn't care about being seen, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he's louder, not because he's dressed better, but because his attention isn't outward. It's inward. He walks into a room like it's just another room. He doesn't scan to see who's watching him. He doesn't fake smiles hoping to come off as likable. He's not auditioning for approval. He's already approved of himself. And that difference, that's where all his power comes from. A woman sees him, not because he's trying to be seen, but because she can feel something most men have lost: presence. A real, grounded energy that doesn't chase anything, because everything he needs he already carries. If you want to start becoming this man, you must begin where you hate to look, at your need for approval. Stop talking to be interesting. Talk when you actually have something to say. Stop posting to be admired. Post if it aligns with your mission. Go places alone. Eat dinner by yourself without pulling out your phone. Walk into the gym and train like nobody's watching, even if they are. This is how presence is built, not through noise, but through silence, not through showing off, but by showing up for yourself first. And when you stop performing for attention, you become the rarest thing in today's world, a man who no longer needs to be seen to be felt. Number 2, he isn't available emotionally. He is the man who doesn't answer messages instantly, not because he's playing a game, but because his time is already claimed by purpose. He doesn't initiate endless conversations or share the depths of his emotions with strangers. He knows that true emotional intimacy isn't earned in hours, it's earned through value, depth, and standards. Most men today give their emotions away like free samples in a store. They overshare, hoping it will make them seem vulnerable, transparent, lovable. They think opening up quickly makes them honest. But to a woman, it makes them easy. And anything too easy becomes invisible. Women aren't drawn to the man who bleeds his soul on the first date. They're drawn to the man whose soul they're not sure they'll ever fully reach. Emotional availability is not about being cold, but about being in control. And the man who is in control of his emotions doesn't leak them for attention or approval. He reveals them slowly, intentionally, and only to those who have earned that privilege. The tragedy is, so many men give away their emotional energy to women who haven't even proven they deserve it. You compliment her before she's said hello. You tell her your past thinking it will build trust, but all it does is lower your value. Because she hasn't invested in you yet. And when she hasn't invested, she can't value what you give. The man who understands this holds his emotional energy like currency, not stingily, not manipulatively, but wisely. He doesn't avoid emotions. He owns them. He doesn't deny his story. He protects it. And in doing so, he becomes a puzzle that a woman can't stop trying to solve. That's why she texts first. That's why she remembers him after 5 minutes of eye contact. Because he didn't give himself away. He let her want to earn it. And that want is what hooks her deeper than any compliment, poem, or heart-to-heart conversation ever will. You want to become this man? Start by asking yourself why you're sharing. Every time you speak about your emotions, ask, am I sharing this to connect or to be liked? If it's the latter, stop. Learn to journal. Learn to talk to yourself. Heal in silence. Let your present speak louder than your past. And above all, never give emotional power to someone who hasn't proven they can hold it with honor. When you stop being emotionally available to women who haven't earned you, they feel the scarcity. And scarcity creates value. You become a high-value man not by being hidden, but by being selective. Not by being closed, but by being sovereign. Because the man who holds his emotional energy with dignity becomes the standard others rise to meet, and never the one who bends to be understood. And if you're ready to not just hear this truth, but live it, there's something waiting for you right now. The Stoic Relationship Blueprint, the ebook that gives you the exact tools, step by step, to build this presence, lead in your relationships, master detachment, and never lose yourself chasing anyone again. This is more than a guide, it's your weapon, your answers to, why do I keep getting overlooked? Why does she pull away when I give my best? How do I stop needing her to feel whole? Everything you felt but couldn't explain, it's all broken down inside. And the best part, once you grab it, it's yours forever. No expiration, no limits, just permanent access to the truth that transforms how women see you, how you see yourself, and how you move in every relationship from here on out. Check the top comment. Get it now. Change your life on your terms. Number 3, he doesn't smile to be liked. There's a specific moment that repeats itself in millions of interactions every single day. A man meets a woman, and before a word is even spoken, his lips spread into a wide smile, an unconscious attempt to soften himself, to appear agreeable, to be liked before he's even been seen. And what he doesn't realize is that this moment, this programmed reaction, is the exact moment she places him into a category he'll never escape from, the one she doesn't respect, the one she forgets, the one she might talk to when she's bored, but never the one she obsesses over. And this truth stings because it reveals just how many men have been lied to about what connection actually means, about what attraction actually feels like to her, and what it really takes to be seen as a man who cannot be ignored, because most men have been conditioned from birth to believe that being liked is the highest social currency they can aim for, that likability is the gateway to success, relationships, trust, and affection. But in the presence of a woman who lives off the emotional currents of the moment, being liked becomes cheap when it's given too freely, and the man who offers his smile like a vending machine, the man who grins wide, trying to be seen as safe, friendly, easygoing, is the man she subconsciously pushes to the side because she already knows everything about him from that one gesture. He will bend, he will overgive, he will chase, and he will tolerate being ignored, all in the name of not rocking the boat, and deep down he'll mistake her disinterest for confusion, thinking he needs to try harder, be funnier, be sweeter. But all he needed to do was stop trying altogether, because there's a different kind of man she meets, one who doesn't force a smile, one whose expression stays still until something actually moves him, one who looks at her like a mirror instead of a trophy. And when that man speaks, it's not from a place of people-pleasing, it's from a place of grounded certainty, a quiet authority that she can't manipulate. And in that dynamic, everything shifts, because now she doesn't feel in control, she feels curiosity, and curiosity creates obsession. So if you're the kind of man who finds himself smiling in rooms where no one has earned it, if you notice that women don't take you seriously, that they laugh but never chase, that they listen but never lean in, it's time to ask yourself, who taught you that approval should be your currency? Because the truth is, a real man smiles when he's actually amused, not when he's uncomfortable. He laughs when something lands deeply, not when he's hoping to be accepted, and he moves through the world with a face that isn't a performance but a presence. And the fastest way to step into that energy is to observe your own discomfort, to go one full day without a social smile, to train yourself to sit in your own energy without adjusting it to make others more comfortable. And when you do this consistently, when your default face becomes a reflection of truth instead of performance, people, especially women, will begin to treat you differently, because now you're not offering yourself on a platter, you're making them earn access to your emotion, your expression, and your energy. And that shift rewires everything, because what women chase isn't joy. They chase mystery, they chase meaning, they chase depth, and all three are impossible to reach when a man is too eager to be liked. So stop grinning your way into irrelevance, stop flooding the room with performative comfort, and start holding space with stillness, with intent, with self-respect so deep it makes people nervous, because the man who refuses to smile for approval is the man who commands respect without a word. Number 4. He looks, then looks away slowly. The stare is a weapon, not because it's aggressive or loud, but because it's deliberate, because it slices through the mask everyone wears in public and says, "I see you and I'm not afraid to let you know." And in a world where most men look down, check their phones, glance away at the first hint of eye contact, the man who holds her gaze for a second longer than comfort allows is the man who ignites something in her that's deeper than words, something primal, something unspoken, something that says, "I don't chase, but I'm not hiding." And what most men fail to understand is that looking at a woman is not the risk. It's what happens after that makes all the difference, because the average man, when a woman meets his eyes, immediately looks away as if he's done something wrong, as if her gaze is a punishment he must flee from. And in that moment, she knows everything. She knows he doesn't believe he deserves her attention. She knows he's scared of being seen, and she knows that he's not dangerous in the way that excites her. He's dangerous in the way that bores her. But then there's the other man, the one who holds her eyes like time doesn't exist, who doesn't blink out of fear, but out of calm control. And when he finally looks away, it's not rushed or sharp. It's slow, like he's already said what he needed to say without a word. And in that pause, in that delay, in that calm dismissal, he creates tension that sticks to her like a scent she can't forget. Because now she's not sure what he saw. She's not sure what he felt. She's not sure if he was impressed or unimpressed. And that uncertainty pulls at her more than any compliment ever could. And if you're a man who struggles to be remembered, to leave an impression, to stand out without screaming, this is where your power begins. In the ability to observe her without giving yourself away, to let your gaze land softly but firmly, to give just enough intensity that she questions her own reaction, and to walk away without checking if she looked back. Because the most intoxicating moment in any interaction is the one she replays later in her head. And that moment can be created in a single glance, if that glance is held with presence and released with purpose. So practice this every day, not just with women, but with the world around you. Train yourself to look at people without flinching, to hold the eyes of strangers, to let your gaze rest where it chooses, not where you're told to place it. Because when you own your gaze, you own the room. And the secret isn't about staring, it's about anchoring. It's about deciding where your attention goes and letting others feel the weight of that decision. And when a woman becomes the recipient of that gaze, when she feels the weight of your presence and the lightness of your detachment all at once, she doesn't just notice you, she remembers you. Because in that moment she wasn't just looked at, she was seen and then dismissed, and that is a wound her ego will nurse long after you've left. So if you want to step into this energy, you must start today, not by faking confidence, but by removing distraction, by facing the discomfort of being looked at and not needing to respond, by practicing awareness without reaction. Because the truth is, she doesn't want your attention as much as she wants to wonder why you gave it. And when you give her just a second of your gaze and walk away like it meant nothing, she's left with a mystery she can't solve, and that mystery will live rent-free in her mind long after every other man's approval smile has faded. So look, then look away slowly, not because you're afraid, but because you've already seen enough, and because she wasn't the point, you were. Number 5. He moves slowly, like he owns time. There's a kind of man who walks into a room and seems to stretch time itself, not because he's loud or flamboyant, but because his every movement feels like it's measured, deliberate, unbothered, and completely his own. And what most men don't realize is that the pace of their movements tells the world exactly how they feel about themselves, because when you move too fast, when you rush through doors, dart your eyes around, bounce your knees, scratch your face, look down at your phone every few seconds, what you're silently screaming is, "I'm unsure. I need to look busy. I don't feel worthy of being still." And people, especially women, pick up on that instantly even if they can't explain it. And that's why so many men today are overlooked. Not because they lack looks or height or even status, but because their energy moves like someone who doesn't believe he has a right to take up space. And this becomes a vicious loop. You feel like you don't matter, so you rush to prove yourself, and in rushing, you signal low value, and then you're ignored, which confirms the belief you started with. But now imagine the man who moves like he has nowhere else to be, the man whose steps are calm, whose gestures are economical, whose body doesn't betray tension or apology. He walks through life like he owns the moment. And when he enters a space, the atmosphere shifts. Not because of some magic, but because his pace tells everyone, "I don't chase anything, it comes to me." And the reason this is so rare is because most men are trying to escape themselves. They're sprinting through life hoping success or attention or affection will validate them enough to let them finally slow down. But they've got it backward. It's the slowing down first that triggers all the attraction, the respect, the gravity they crave. Because when a man moves slowly, he's not just moving physically, he's demonstrating that he is already fulfilled, already grounded, already enough. And that presence is what women notice, what other men respect, what people remember. So if you're tired of being overlooked, of feeling invisible, of never commanding a room, start here. Start with your body. Analyze how fast you talk, how quick you laugh, how fast you reach for things, how many times you touch your face or adjust your clothes when nervous, and then interrupt that pattern. Breathe deeper, walk slower, talk with pauses, eat without rushing, sit with stillness even when it's awkward, and the world will begin to adjust to your pace instead of the other way around. Because the truth is, the man who slows down doesn't just move differently. He lives differently. He thinks before he speaks. He observes before he acts. And that self-mastery becomes impossible to ignore, especially in a world addicted to speed and distraction. And when a woman sees a man like that, her instinct is to follow, because in his slowness is power, in his calm is clarity, in his control is the echo of ancient leadership, the kind of presence that doesn't demand respect. It receives it effortlessly. So stop moving like the world's about to leave you behind and start moving like the world already belongs to you. Number 6. He listens more than he speaks. In a world full of noise where everyone's desperate to be heard, the rarest and most powerful energy a man can carry is silence. Not the silence of weakness or fear, but the silence of control, of discernment, of someone who isn't trying to perform. And most men today lose all their value in the first 5 minutes of conversation because they speak to fill space, not to deliver substance. They throw out jokes, opinions, stories, compliments, all in a rush to be liked, to seem interesting, to prove worth before it's even requested. And what they don't realize is that by speaking too much, too soon, they rob themselves of all mystery, all presence, and all leverage, because women don't fall for the man who reveals everything. Women fall for the man they can't quite read, the man who listens deeply without giving away where he stands, who hears her completely but doesn't flinch, doesn't validate too quickly, doesn't interrupt, doesn't try to top her story or impress with his own. And that level of patience and restraint is almost extinct today because it requires one thing most men never develop: internal sufficiency. And the truth is, most men speak compulsively not because they're confident, but because they're terrified of being misunderstood or unseen. But when you listen more than you speak, when you let people expose themselves fully without feeling the need to mirror or match or one-up, you create a dynamic of power that shifts everything. And women especially feel this contrast because they're used to men who chase with their words, who flood the conversation with premature vulnerability, trying to force a connection instead of allowing it to unfold. And the man who listens doesn't just make her feel heard, he makes her feel curious, because he's not giving her anything to figure him out too quickly, and that curiosity becomes desire. So if you're a man who finds yourself always leading the conversation, always carrying the weight of interaction, always trying to keep things from getting awkward, stop and reverse the dynamic. Ask questions that dig deeper, then shut up and listen to how she answers. Watch her body language, track what she avoids, notice her contradictions. And when you do speak, speak with purpose, not filler. Let your words cut, not cloud, because each time you interrupt, over-explain, or drift into rambling, you shrink your presence. But when you sit in silence after asking something powerful, when you let her carry the emotional weight of the conversation, she feels the gravity of your presence without you having to raise your voice once. And over time, this practice does more than just attract women. It transforms how the world responds to you, because now you're no longer the man who needs to be heard. You're the man who decides when and how to speak. And that level of control rewires every room you enter, from relationships to business, from dates to negotiations. So if you want to be unforgettable, if you want your voice to carry more weight, learn to use it less and train your ears to become weapons of precision. Because in a world addicted to noise, The quiet man who listens like he already knows the answer is the man who gets asked the most questions. Number 7. He has nothing to prove. There's a silent desperation that most men carry, and they carry it without even knowing, a subtle itch under their skin that whispers, "I need to show her I'm enough." And it drives every word they say, every step they take, every choice they make when they're in the presence of a woman they want to impress. And this invisible hunger bleeds through everything. They name-drop jobs and accomplishments early in conversation. They flash their lifestyle, their car, their watch. They talk about their future like it's a movie trailer crafted for approval. And all the while, they don't realize that everything they're doing is actually pushing her further away, because a man who tries to prove himself is a man who doesn't yet know who he is. And women feel that instantly, not consciously, not logically, but emotionally, instinctively, and it repels them because it signals need. It screams that you require her validation in order to feel real, and that need is the death of desire, because desire doesn't grow where approval is begged for. It grows where value is demonstrated, and the truth most men never hear is that you don't earn respect by shouting your worth. You earn it by living in a way that doesn't ask for attention, and this is where the man who has nothing to prove becomes a force of nature, because he walks into a room already full, already certain, already at peace with the man he is. And whether a woman is impressed or not makes no difference to him, not because he's arrogant, but because his worth isn't tied to her reaction. And that detachment, that internal solidity, is what women feel before he even speaks, because it's in his pace, in his eyes, in the silence between his words, and most importantly, in what he doesn't do. He doesn't boast, he doesn't flex, he doesn't convince, and yet he's unforgettable. And every man watching this needs to understand one thing. The moment you start performing for her is the moment you disqualify yourself from being truly desired, because performance implies deficiency, and true attraction is born from overflow. So if you find yourself constantly trying to prove you're good enough, attractive enough, successful enough, you're already bleeding your power into the wrong places, and it's time to stop, to strip back everything that isn't rooted in truth, to live a life that is so in alignment with who you actually are that you no longer need to explain anything, because your presence speaks it all. How you carry yourself, how you treat yourself, how you walk away from what doesn't serve you, how you say no without apology, how you sit in silence without filling it, how you take care of your body, your space, your money, your values. And if you do this long enough, the energy around you begins to shift. People ask more questions, women lean in instead of look away, and your entire dynamic with the world transforms, not because you got louder, but because you got rooted. So from now on, stop giving your power away in the form of explanations, approval-seeking, or emotional selling points, and start becoming the man who shows nothing, proves nothing, and still leaves everyone wondering how you got that way. Number 8. He doesn't flinch from rejection. Every man knows the pain of being dismissed, overlooked, friend-zoned, ghosted, ignored, and it carves into your ego like a slow blade. Especially when you think you've done everything right. You texted on time, you gave compliments, you played nice, you listened, you gave your time, your money, your attention. And still, she pulled back. Still, she lost interest. Still, she chose someone else who didn't give her half of what you did. And that pain doesn't just sit in your heart. It infects your confidence. It makes you hesitate, makes you doubt, makes you question whether you'll ever be enough for anyone. And this is exactly where the cycle begins. Because the more you fear rejection, the more you adapt your behavior to avoid it. And in doing so, you become the very thing she doesn't want. You become safe, predictable, agreeable, over-invested, and disposable. And most men never escape this trap because they never realize that rejection isn't the enemy. It's the fuel, It's the fire that forges men who can't be broken, and the truth is, the man who doesn't flinch from rejection is the man who's already chosen himself. And that kind of man walks into interactions without fear because he doesn't see a yes as validation or a no as failure. He sees both as information, and with that mindset, he becomes dangerous in the most attractive way possible because he's not playing to win her approval. He's observing, qualifying, filtering, and leading, and that flips the entire script because now she's the one trying to impress him, trying to be seen, trying to be chosen. And this is what most men miss. Rejection doesn't break a man, avoiding rejection does. And if you want to become truly untouchable, you must train yourself to walk toward what you fear, to risk being ignored, to ask without begging, to show interest without chasing, to compliment without expectation, and then to walk away when your standards aren't met without resentment, because in that walk away is where your power lives. And when a woman sees a man who can do that, who doesn't collapse under a no, who doesn't explain himself or beg for reconsideration, who doesn't spiral when things don't go his way, she feels the kind of strength that she can't forget, because most men react emotionally, and that emotion makes them forgettable. But you, when you stay grounded, when you keep your posture, when you don't flinch, you become the exception, and that's all it takes to win. Not through manipulation, not through playing games, but through a level of self-respect so high that no rejection can touch it. And this doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop needing. It means you pursue from overflow, not from scarcity. And the only way to build that is to lean into the places where your ego still hurts, to let her say no and not make it mean anything about you, to let her walk away and not chase, to let her test and still not flinch, because the man who doesn't fear rejection is the man who already knows he can't be replaced. And that belief, when embodied, not spoken, creates a gravitational pull that no one can escape. So stop seeing rejection as the loss of something and start seeing it as the filter that protects your energy, because the moment you stop flinching is the moment you start winning. You've been ignored, overlooked, disrespected, not because you're not good enough, but because you were never taught how to be unforgettable. You've been giving your time, your love, your loyalty to people who don't even see you, and deep down, you're exhausted. But that ends now. The man who leads himself needs no permission. The man who stops needing her becomes the man she can't stop thinking about. And if that's the man you're ready to become, the answers are in the Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men, the most brutally honest guide for men who are done being emotionally used and thrown away. This ebook won't just shift how you deal with women, it'll shift how you show up in every room, every relationship, every moment of your life. Comment: I choose clarity if you're ready to lead instead of chase. Like the video and subscribe, not for me, but so more men can find this truth before it's too late, before they waste more years begging for crumbs from women who never saw their value. It's in the comments. Click it, own it. It's yours forever, because no one is coming to save you.